Hello and welcome to the Bible Quiz Sports Network Game Day show. It's day two. Thursday is over, and now we're going to talk about Thursday, the round robin. I've got Nate, I've got Avi, I've got Austin, and we have Lisa and Cole joining us. By the time we get to Saturday, the whole hotel will be on the Zoom with me, and I'll enjoy that. Well, almost all of them I'd enjoy. Anyway, all right, so let's talk about Bible quizzing today. How did Thursday go, guys? What were your insights? Don't everybody talk at once.
I think what I
Well,
saw was a lot of teams were putting up big numbers. Lots of teams. Vindicated had a 490. Third Day had a 460. Messengers had a 740. Um, I'll just scroll around. Dead BC had a 330. Moxie had a 490. And of course, Riven outdid everyone with an 810. Um, but so many names around. Astonished had a 610 in here somewhere too. A lot of big numbers being put up through the round robin by a lot of different teams. It's not just the same three putting up the big numbers now. So
Yeah, I was
more
gonna say to
parity.
go along with that, I noticed that some of the big teams had some fairly low numbers. So some big numbers put up by a bunch of different teams, but maybe overall the averages of the scores may be down a little bit.
I didn't hear if you mentioned it, but I saw Established had a 570, which I thought was impressive. They've been a team that I've watched today, and they're going crazy.
I
Yeah, and
yeah, I noticed that one too. That was a good one.
I heard early on with we got established scoring a lot there, and I heard that Third Day is really putting up the points. Whether or not that's translating into bracket points with their placements, I haven't kept track of that, but I heard they were keeping pace with Riven through the morning on how many total points they had scored. So that's impressive by them. I think overall trends. While we're talking about like we did last night with the short book year and it kind of being anybody's game in the tournament or in a given quiz, and we're talking about lots of teams scoring high and high teams scoring low, it's still overall, with exceptions as there always are, overall it seemed to be that the teams that should win quizzes and get second in quizzes and get third in quizzes, it was kind of falling out that way. Which maybe that was the surprise that I thought there were going to be more surprises. So that's, we've still got lots of quizzing left, but a lot of teams winning the quizzes that they should win, even though they were maybe tighter than you would expect them to be.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would say that, a lot of these big scores can also be dependent on not only the teams involved, but also the quiz masters involved. There'll
Yeah.
be certain quiz masters that will read faster, perhaps even give a little bit of an extra word here and there, and get more questions in the quiz, which a lot of times translates to more points. Whereas there'll be other quiz masters who are a little more deliberate. They're trying to be as clear as possible and may not be reading as quickly, and thus don't get a lot of questions out in a quiz. And so I'd be curious, or it may be a little interesting to do a quick analysis of the quiz masters in each of the sites. You can almost go straight across site wise through the day and look at the scores and just see how the sites lined up, as far as the average scoring in those sites, and you get a pretty good idea of how the quiz masters may have had some influence in the scoring overall. So it'd be curious to take a look at that sometime and see how it looks, and um, let your team know, like, hey, we go into this type of a quiz with this quiz master. Maybe the scores won't be as high as it were with this other quiz master. So I think a lot of it can come down to the quiz master that we see.
I
One thing
Oh, go ahead, Lisa. Go ahead.
in site one, the top score all day was 170 with a ton of great teams up there. And I think that really was the quiz masters up there were just harder to score tons of points on.
Definitely one that I noticed was site one. And a revelation lost in Kim Cooper's room. Kim's very good at stopping right on the lights, and that can be difficult to adjust to. And Apocalypse managed to beat him in that quiz. I saw Revelation beat Riven in their matchup, so those were a couple of things we were keeping an eye on throughout the day and interesting to track. About Quizmasters, in baseball, I love a stat called weighted runs created plus because the stat takes a look at the effect of the ballpark on the hitter, like if a home run would be in a ballpark or not. And same way with fielding independent pitching, looks at the defense behind a pitcher. We need to come up with advanced stats for quizzers. We might discover that some of these guys should be all-stars, but they just happen to run into difficult quizmasters over and over on Thursday and Friday. So all of you math geeks out there, get to work, come up with, and then this is where Avi's like, no, someone's been doing that for 2 decades now, Quincy. Anyway, all right. So uh let's uh let's hear about anything else from the insights from today besides the big win of Revelation over Riven. What else did you hear out there on those Bible quizzing streets?
You talked about the ballpark, and I know that in site 4, we had a little bit of drama with a wasp that was making itself known for a while. From the quizzers and coaches' perspective, when they turned around, all they saw was Phil Gomes hitting me with a clipboard when I was the backup quizmaster. So I think they thought there was some bad blood there. In the end, it just turned out the wasp had landed on me, and I was trying to make a quick exit in the middle of somebody answering a question. But Site 4 was rescued by security. Walt and Andrew both came in there, and they teamed it and took down that wasp. So there was a lot of drama early on in the day.
I bet that wasp didn't have a wristband on, so it can't be in our quiz sites.
Yep, definitely did not.
Okay, gotta have our BQF wristbands on to be able to come into the quiz sites.
All right. Well, that's a new level of protection. I like it.
Throughout the day, I heard many people saying the most controlled team was Astonished. And I saw that Mike was with them in site 8. Very, very few splits, very few pure references. They were controlling their pace really well. With me at least. Now there's 17 other quizmasters here, but
no, I definitely saw it too.
Okay.
They're underrated. They're underrated. I know that I mentioned Syrian when we were talking last night, but the star power on that team is not just Syrian, it's Alexa Malway, for Pete's sake, and Anna Jones. They might not hit their bonuses very often, but I would not be at all surprised to see them in the top 7, 6, 5 even.
Absolutely.
That could be 50 points.
And again, with the small books years, 3 dominant quizzers can get you a long way sometimes.
Yes.
So yeah, that's great call out. You guys talked about Kingdom yesterday, and I saw some real good performances from Kingdom also. They had a difficult schedule like we said, so they didn't get all firsts or anything, but very consistent quizzing, and I tuned in to watch some of their quizzes because I hadn't really seen that as the ministry as a team before, and I was impressed by their poise as well, so we mentioned them. I thought Witness from Youth Challenge, they had a couple of pretty eyebrow-raising scores, so I think that's a pretty good team. So lots of good teams to keep an eye on. Let's take our attention a little bit to Friday. I'll share with you guys some quizzes that I pulled out here. So at 10:15 in Site 3, Astonished, Apocalypse, and Dwell from Family Life. Just kind of interested to see Astonished and Apocalypse go at it, but Family Life teams, they are always feisty. Even if it's not, it seems like Third Day and Established are kind of their top 2 teams, but they're always feisty teams that'll win jumps in there. So I think that'll be kind of an interesting quiz now that we've seen both Astonished and Apocalypse have a good day. See how they're stacking up the second time around for the next day. I'll pause here after I talk about a couple of these quizzes, and you guys can share thoughts. Then 11:15, I circled Third Day, Watchmen, and Warriors. Just kind of seeing how Third Day and Warriors match up is of interest to me. And then that's that's in site 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's in site 7. And then at 10:45, right before that, in site 8, Clay, Established, and Astonished. I think that'll be an interesting quiz. Kind of a let's see if Astonished is really who they kind of appear to be, with some pretty darn good teams entering that site. So, any thoughts on those?
I
Yeah,
think
well,
it'll
I
be
know
tough on. Oh,
Go ahead,
I think
Nate.
it'll be tough on. I think it'll be tough on the Quizmaster in that last one with Established and Astonished.
Uh,
Just being able to get those two teams straightened out and saying those two names separately. Um, we Clay does a good job of keeping their errors down from what I've seen. They've most of the time, and they're pretty economical in their scoring. And I think Austin's mentioned this in the past. Astonished is similar in that way as well, as being very economical and are keeping their errors down. And what he was saying tonight is, they're not splitting very many references, things like that. So I think having those two teams going up against each other in that mode, in their economical mode, I think they'll do well then. With with Established, see, I'm having trouble saying them too. um, Established, they're right up there too as far as being a top tier team from Family Life. So I think that'll be a good quiz to see and see how it all turns out. See who is able to be the most controlled in that quiz and likely win that quiz.
we'll see between Established, who has the best coverage of Galatians.
Definitely saw a couple of those.
Hey Cole, I don't know if they asked you to be on the video to be a mime, or if you'd like to maybe chime in on something.
Yeah, no, I did have a comment about the Apocalypse, Astonished, and Dwell quiz.
The apocalypse. You have a comment on the apocalypse, please. I took a class on Revelation. I took a class on Revelation this fall. I'm interested.
Yeah, no. But yeah, no, Apocalypse, just a shout out a little bit. They beat Unshadowed and Revelation today. And I think, don't want to like beat a dead horse here or anything, but obviously short book here. It's a little bit different than, some other years because, when you're a top tier team like Riven or Revelation, usually the strategy is, be patient throughout the first quiz, and be patient, get under 3 errors and then, slowly work your way up. If you need to, jump a little more aggressively at the end and go for it. But this year, you see those like, we all know those teams that kind of like Apocalypse where they just come out swinging the entire quiz and just get a ton of points, but they also get a ton of errors. Usually you don't want to be that team, right? But this year, for the most part, I'm noticing that that's kind of the strategy to go with. It's kind of, unfortunately, don't want to get this in quizzers' heads for every year, but this year, I really do think you kind of just have to accept if it's going to be a tight 3-way quiz, you're going to have 10 or more errors anyway. So Apocalypse, that's already the way they roll a lot of the time, not to throw any shade at them at all. But they were just, that's their world. That's kind of how they roll anyway. And so I think they get into some positions where the other teams are thinking, okay, we got to play it safe. We got to be cautious, but Apocalypse is already out there swinging, and, taking the jumps and being aggressive. So I think they're a team to watch for the tournament.
That's an interesting insight. I've thought about that before, that I think there is some underrated value in having a team that is just fine making tons of errors, because when you get into those Donnybrook quizzes, those back and forth slobber knockers, there'd be another word that I could use. Then it's great to have quizzers that are like 10 errors. I had 10 errors when I woke up this morning, and they just don't care. They just go at it, and that can really be an advantage. I say this as somebody who I usually coach the teams that really try to keep their errors down. Sometimes I go on those quizzes and I'm like, guys, you gotta just forget about how many errors we have. Let's just get some more, because it's the only way we're gonna win.
There were some Moxie teams of old that had a lot of errors, but were making some really, really deep runs and winning a couple titles.
Yeah, Moxie would be the best example of this concept, I think. Speaking of Moxie, 115, Moxie, Revelation, and Dwell. Dwell showing up in a couple of these things too. But Moxie and Revelation going at it there should be interesting to watch. Sorry for people kind of keeping track. That's in Site 5. Let's see. Insight 5 also at 145. This was my favorite quiz, I think, to follow. Astonish, Third Day, and Revelation. I think that'll be really, really interesting. I'd love to know who's quiz mastering that one. And then at 2:15, Eclipse, Zenith, and Astonished. Astonished showing up a lot of these quizzes. Should be an interesting day for them. And I know they had a great day on Thursday. Friday will be tougher, so it'll be good to kind of see how they come out of that. But I think Eclipse and Zenith will be interesting to plug in there and see what they're capable of doing. And then I'll pause after this next one. Redemption, Restoration, and Resurrection are all in one quiz. So you thought Established and Astonished was bad, but Redemption, Restoration, and Resurrection. Oh, geez, that's gonna be tough.
Lots of R&R in that quiz.
And R.
Reading and writing and arithmetic.
Oh, nice to say it twice.
Rats and rats and rats.
Redemption is always one of my favorite teams to quiz when I'm coaching a team. I always enjoy quizzing them. They've got a great attitude, so I'm sure that'll be a good quiz. I'll just finish it off. I just wanted to say 3:30 p.m. quizzes on Friday. That's like a prime time slate. Listen to these ones. Clay, Dead BC, and CB squared. That's up in Site 4. Site 6, Sons of the King, Moxie, and Riven. Site 10, Apocalypse, Messengers, and Zenith. There's and Revelation Warriors are going at it. There'll be some good ones to end the day on Friday. So any thoughts on these teams that I've mentioned? You don't have to remember each and every quiz.
Thoughts, they're just trying to
Austin's being
say.
a puppet master.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think that BC looks incredible this year. They're kind of one of those teams that will get like 13 errors, but they'll also get like 20 points in a quiz and just be like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's just Tuesday. Like, and then a couple of quizzers that I've seen studying nonstop ever since minicamp are Becca Plummer and Eden Shep. They know their material backwards and forwards. And you saw that in a quiz with BC and Ribbon. Becca quizzed out, and I know Eden had at least 80 points, so they're setting the pace for that team.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah, I think with the quiz between Apocalypse, Messengers, and Zenith that you mentioned, Messengers, they're, I don't want to say a wild card, but we saw from them today in their very first quiz, they were against Ribbon and Messengers, and they really, kind of did the classic Midland thing where they kind of sat back and let the other teams get errors. And like we said, that's not always the greatest strategy for this tournament, and it didn't work out super well for them. They scored pretty low in that quiz, and then exactly 2 quizzes later, they came out with like a 750 and took first by a mile. So I think in like a quiz like that where it's against Apocalypse and Zenith, where they are very aggressive, maybe you don't always know if it's going to work out, but I think generally what we've seen from Messengers year after year is, their strategy of patience and kind of, aggression where there's a need for it. It kind of balances out at the end, especially, at the end of the day and the end of the tournament, and often at the end of the quiz. So yeah, I think that'll be an interesting one to watch. See which way they go on that one.
Yeah, I had them for a quiz, and I saw that they had lost a couple quizzes. I don't know what their whole entire day looked like today. And it was kind of like, I wonder if they're that good. And then they came in and it was astounding how good they were in the quiz that I had them when I was quiz mastering. And Hannah Gibson she's a quizzer to watch. And they've got multiple quizzers on that team who are excellent. Bryson Grosheim, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. Sorry, man.
Or not.
You can correct me, but no, they looked really sharp, and so I think on Saturday that's going to serve them well.
I did just get off the phone with my wife. Hannah is averaging 80 right now.
That's incredible.
Through Thursday, and I know from being related to some of their quizzers, this was their tougher day, so tomorrow could really be a standout day for Messengers.
Nice. Yeah.
That Site 4 matchup at the end is going to be another really good measuring stick quiz to see how Clay, Dead BC, and CB squared perform in a 3-team quiz where all 3 teams are really tight together. and that's all the quizzes you're going to see on Saturday. So that'll be a good one to kind of get a feel of where they're at going into the big one.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe that. I think you look at that quiz, if you're watching and following that one, if you're somebody that has a buy for that last quiz, that's a great one to kind of get yourself in a Saturday mindset. Everybody's kind of tired at the end of the day on Friday, but there'll be a little bit of extra juice in that quiz as you've got all three of them there. So guys, does the construction noise compare to the barrage of polka or no?
Not even
Not
kind
remotely.
of.
There's nothing that can compare to trying to quiz with incessant polka. I will never forget trying to coach quizzers, and I'm just like, look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just don't know what to tell you. As it's like you're like, oh, they're taking it. No, they're not breaking. That's still going. So yeah, I didn't think it could possibly compare.
Not even close.
Yeah, the upstairs sites have some great elevator music, but it's not even close to as loud, and there's not much accordion, so it's.
Yeah, we tried to open the doors for a hot minute to get some air in the quiz site, and that lasted about one question because it felt like the elevator, like we were quizzing inside an elevator. It was, yeah, a little bit much there, but closed the doors, everything was okay again.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I miss it. I miss all the craziness of it. So thanks for letting me in on a little bit of it. And man, it's great to be able to watch and follow along. Can't wait to see how things go. You're all welcome to return, not just our series regulars, but our guests welcome to return and talk some more quizzing with us on tomorrow night when we have a chance after we get you guys get a chance to hear seedings. So thank you, everybody.